Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin, and today we have a special guest. He has been in Force Awakens, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, and Solo: A Star Wars Story. He is a big fan himself. Cannot wait for you guys to hear the passion from this guy. He is just fantastic. Please welcome the one and only Dee Tails. How's it going, man?
Hey, thank you for that.
You're
How are you
welcome.
guys doing?
Good. All right.
How you doing? Good.
Yeah, I am absolutely doing great. I can't wait to dive straight into these questions, man. Like, you have done a lot. Um, I'm gonna start with a super important one here. What was it like to be part of a movie so Force Awakens that essentially was rebooting the franchise of Star Wars? What was that like?
It was beyond belief. To be honest, it wasn't something like I'd ever expected to. It wasn't a situation I thought I'd be in. The last time I thought about possibly auditioning for Star Wars was when they were doing the prequels, and I'm thinking, man, they're not going to fly someone like me all the way over there just to be in the background or something like that. They're going to want names or something. So I didn't even bother with the casting. And the thing with this one, it was the press about it, the noise about it, even started before there was press and noise about it. You know what I mean? So it wasn't something I thought I stood a chance, and I'm thinking they're going to want to see anybody and everybody. It doesn't matter what you've got on your CV or your resume. If they like the look of you or whatever. And I'm thinking, man, I've worked so hard. What if I walk in there and my CV means nothing? And they just don't see anything. And that's it. There's no more Star Wars. There's nothing for me other than sitting there in the audience watching it as an actor thinking, wow, that's as close as I got. Right? So, wow. I'm going to the depths. I'm going right into the depths here. So it was absolutely surreal from the basis that as a kid, I used to watch Sesame Street, and then after Sesame Street, there was the making of all these movies and things like that I didn't even really understand being that young. But then as soon as I saw this kind of swamp and Miss Piggy was there and Kermit was there, and they were creating a new character with these elongated ears and things, I'm like, now you've got my attention.
Right.
And that drew me in. But I got to see all of what they were showing back then. It must have been in the early 80s of the making of these things. And then I find myself on the set, stood there looking around at people half in costume, half out of costume, people that I've yet to meet and become that unified family with that we are now over these years and things like that. But that just took me back. It was one of those moments where it's almost like the camera goes, and you're just in that moment. And I just, I cherished every minute of it. It was, and to know what I was in.
Yeah.
It's like, they're making some movie called Rocks from Outer Space, right? And it's like, huh, what's that about? You go there and it's, okay, you want me to do this? With Star Wars, I knew what Star Wars was.
Right.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan and the audience now. Yeah, and I'm the audience in that moment. I'm thinking, are the audience going to see this the way that I see this? It's a bombardment of emotions when everything kicks off like that. And J.J. Abrams is coming up to you and saying, well, you're going to have to cheat the shot by looking over your left shoulder because Khan's coming in. And then I turn around and I'm in costume, and Han Solo stood there, and stood there and gave me one of those smiles, and just, I was a professional. My movements were professional, as if, and whatever. But inside, I'm like,
yeah. And not only was that scene like I mean of you like of just of being part of Star Wars, but we were also kind of part of like a recreation of what the cantina was back in episode 4, but like a new take. And you played this character. His name is Crantus. Yeah.
Cratinus. He's an
Yes.
Abdurian and has a brother called Crashy. We're crooks.
Right. And I loved that of like as soon as I walked through the door and the camera's panning through and stuff like that, and you just hear the band play, it was like, let's go. Star Wars is back. This is so cool. And I loved how there was a familiar sense to it where, you know, it was Star Wars, but also it was a new thing because there were a lot of new species in there, and including the character that you played. What was your approach to playing this character? And was this the first time that you played something like this before?
Well, my introduction into CFX, which was creature effects,
Yes,
started when I was doing. No, actually, yeah, kind of a bit. Yeah, between the two, I was doing pantos, like these pantomimes at Christmas time in the UK. We do these incredibly, you know, custard pies and all those types of things based loosely around maybe like Aladdin or something like that. And it's totally for the family and children's entertainment around Christmas time. And there's a story about a guy called Dick Whittington who comes down from north and comes to find his love and find his riches because the streets are supposed to be paved with gold, you know, and he encounters a villain who's besotted by the woman that he likes, but along the way he'll meet a cat, and this cat can talk. You know, and this cat is a black and white cat with an afro and these white little things here. He's called Tommy. He has a strut. Sounds like Shrek. The kids love him, and it was that kind of thing, you know. And I had my face painted and everything. That was hours, man, hours for 2 shows a day, you know. But that was where my love for what I did came from, because I understood it. I knew Sesame Street. I love that stuff. Yeah. Right now, I'm getting to do this for the kids. And anytime it got grueling, because I would reach the theater an hour before to do my makeup and get in the suit. And then I would be the last one to leave, having to take off the makeup and things like that. And whenever it got hard in the mornings, as soon as they turned on the tannoy and you could hear the audience and you could hear those kids, it was just like, yeah, okay, I could do this. I could do that every single time. It's just the children. You're just doing it for the children and they love what you're doing, you know? So from that perspective, that was my kind of like one of my ways in. And the other one was I used to work with at least 20 or 30 other actors at the Royal Opera House. And we would fill in all the acting and I don't know, crew work, like moving things around for the artists and things around the stage, or engaging with them, not like the chorus who sing with them. And there was a moment we were doing, what's it called? The Ring Cycle, Wagner's Ring Cycle.
Okay.
Man, each show was about like 8 hours or 9 hours long. Yeah, and we do one show for 1 week, and then the second show for the second. It was that long. And in one of those scenes, there's a scientist who takes a potion, it transforms him into this giant being. And along in that transformation, he went from normal size to about, I want to say about 12 or 10, about 12, between 12 and 15 feet, with this costume that I was wearing with this rig.
Yeah,
that I would come out and I'd chase him around the stage. Yeah, I could. I'd come off the stage, and then the stage crew would operate this big head that would come over and these arms that would grab these singers. Right.
This was just on a stage show.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It was absolutely incredible, but the audience would always get a giggle out of just the spectacle of it. Right. Yeah. And then from there, that's when I ended up, you know, going in for fittings for craftiness, you know, and the original fitting I went for wasn't for that head, it was for Prashi, because that's the first one that they had. And along in that process, when they decided there was going to be two of them, that's when they made another one for me. And as you can tell by the grin on my face, it wasn't hard for them to structure that around Obama and myself or whatever, for that grin on his face, which was based on, right?
Yeah.
And so I filled that character completely. Then in wardrobe, Tom Bell, who plays Prashi, and I would make up this space language, and we would terrorize, but we'd entertain the wardrobe department as these characters. But these characters walked around on their knees, so we had shoes on our feet, on our knees, because they wanted to show a distortion between the body, rather than have someone small come in, because they had also other small actors and actresses doing other little things. But these ones were going to be a little bit weird, where we had a long torso and really short short legs.
Interesting,
right? And I remember we entertained. We waddled in to the photo area, so we didn't walk in and dress up. We came waddling in, and the photographer was beautiful guy, and he just took to us immediately, and just went snapping away. But that's how we built on that. And the few times we would get into the costume and we would get that 10-second at least to look at ourselves in the mirror, that's when we've decided that we've locked in what we know about that face, what we know about our movements, how to cheat that face. Because that face you see in that photo, you get in the movie where I'm doing this, I'm going like that at the table, right? But there were other takes where if we were playing the card game and I was like this with my head down, the expression changed completely just on that angle, so that the reveal would seem like it was catching up and smart. But that's something that we discovered while we were playing around with it. And also in between the takes, we stayed in character. So we were always cracking up and laughing and stuff like that. And the extras would come to the table and improv, so they get into that scene. And there was a time when Lupita Nyong'o came, and she was in her, I think it was a motion capture suit. She came to the table, and I made it my mission to make her laugh, and I succeeded. So it was a job well done.
That's so cool.
That whole experience, carrying on in character in between the takes, was my way of saying, this is what I would expect if I was on a Star Wars set. I want people to go home remembering this about Star Wars if it's their first time.
Right.
And that's why also in character, when I get into my costumes, I don't like to be taken out of them too often unless I need to. And then if I'm not in my costume, I don't want to be out mingling too much. I want to come onto the set as that character, because everybody else is in character, and it kind of bonds that unity for me.
That's so cool because of the I also love your whole take of where you would end up leaning down and then you would like kind of bring your head up, because there's this expression which is it goes like less is more. So if you're doing something where like you are drawing away from the scene, like it's just like, oh, what's going on over there? But then if you do what you did, which was you turn into this organic performance where it didn't seem forced at all, and it seemed natural, and you really did bring that character you want to see in the background. Yeah,
they can't see my eyes, they can't see my face, and the reaction that they're getting is making me laugh, because I'm doing all of this stuff and they're looking at this face and they start laughing. So it's an infectious thing. And it's funny because when we were on set, there was one moment when they were testing out a shot. We got to shoot that scene for about 2 weeks, I think, because Harrison had broken his leg at the time. Remember?
That's right. Yep.
Right. So they extended it. So JJ wanted to get as much as he could out of that scene, so that he had more to play around with later on if they wanted to change things around. Where was I going? So JJ did that. And then also at the same time, we have all these different cameras in the room picking up different angles. And so you don't know what's filming and what's not filming. But I know Lucasfilm are filming all the time, right? Just in case, because I watched the prequels. Yeah, I watched the making of the prequels. I saw what they did. Right? Yeah. And so whenever I'm on set, it's always on. It's always working, just because of that one premise that I know about ILM. But in our rehearsal, in the audition to be in that room, we were in a room with people that had worked with Jim Henson. We were in a room with people that had been puppeteers, puppeteering these mosquitoes. We had guys puppeteering the snoots with the flight goggles that were sitting at the table at the bar. Guys operating big giant suits. Everybody that was in that test, to see who was going to be in that little tavern, was picked. And the only instruction we were given is by Neil. He says, when I say actors come alive, you're going to come alive, and you're not going to stop until I say actors finish or actors end or whatever. Yeah. And he says, well, JJ and his producers, they're all going to come through and pick out what they want for the scene and see what works and what doesn't work. And I said, and I went up to him and I said, so you just want me to laugh? He said, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And the trigger was as soon as he said actors come alive, Tom's cue was to whisper something to me, and then we would start performing. And yes, and that, I don't know how long that went on for, but it went on for quite some time. And then when Neil said actors end, JJ and everyone had left. And then I took off the head and I was sweating buckets. and then Neil said, can we have a round of applause for Dee, please? And these are my peers. These are people that I've worshipped since I was a kid, watching their work, giving me that applause. And it was like, that was my audition to fit in with this family. That's so of professionals that do what they do. And by the time we were in that environment, JJ did say to me at one point, bring it down just a little bit. And then he stopped after that and said to one of his assistants, oh no, we're going to give them a hero moment. And then that's why in the middle of the conversation that Maz has with Han, BB-8, Ray and Finn at the table, you get this moment of me going, So and JJ bought the head. JJ bought that actual head.
Oh really? Oh cool. So we were talking a bit before. I do some costumes and stuff, and I wear a screen accurate Chewbacca costume. And wearing that mask, it's slightly different than what you wore, but how I just know how exhausting it is to like take it off after a troop, because you take it off and you're like that, because it's like your
air oxygen.
Yeah. How long were you wearing that on set from a day at a time?
Heaven knows. They would check on us every 20 minutes.
Okay.
My carer was Serena. So Serena would come in and check on the paint, check on everything, and if something wasn't right, either she'd fix it or get someone in to do that. And making sure that I was hydrated with water, because we were sat next to a literal fire pit. And this room and the place was kind of somewhat enclosed, with open ceiling for the lights and everything like that. But I didn't feel that heat because we have a stocking cap over our face. Yeah,
Okay.
but it has that much open. And then it was a foam mask, a foam latex mask. So put the foam mask on, put it underneath the clothes, adjust it so I can see out of the eyes or whatever, and then I was literally protected from the heat.
Okay.
But I think what we do is we check every 20 minutes to make sure everything's okay, but someone's with you and we'll check every 10. Yeah. Okay. And that 10 is kind of like, what, do you want some water? Okay, right. Next 10, are you okay? Do you need to come out? Can you breathe? Is there enough air? Sometimes you have a flexible head or apparatus or something that you can take off. One of my most comfortable heads that I've worn, all of my heads have been comfortable, to be honest, but one of my coolest ones was L1 for Rogue One. He's an L1 droid. That was such a comfortable suit. It was made to be the hero suit as K2SO before they went through the design change. There he is. Yeah. So I got the luxury of a hero suit that didn't become a hero character, but it was so comfortable, and the moment it gave these kids on set, made my day. It was during it was just after a break, and because they were doing all this guerrilla filming, and I know ILM, I wasn't sure where the cameras were, but I knew there was about 2 or 3. So even if I was rehearsing something that I might put into a take, I was doing it sincerely so I could learn that rhythm that would last the period of time until they said cut. Yeah, because it could be a minute or 30 seconds. So I'm like, if I start here, then I can go here, and then I can do this, and I can repeat that. Right? So I was doing all these things, and I turned up, and there was a whole bunch of kids there. Yeah. And so I'm in my costume, so I'm like, my voice is resonating in this helmet. So I'm like, oh, hello, right? And they were like, oh, wow. And I think it was Ivy Wong, the kid that was crying. She insisted that she was staying character. She told the kids to stay in character. And then word got around that I got on with the kids. And then there was one shot that we tested where they were playing in a downed X-wing or speeder, and I was collecting parts. It was kind of near the entrance, and it didn't end up in the movie, but it was one of those takes that they were doing that could have been, right?
Yeah.
The take that ended up in the movie was just after the break. Their carer is bringing them back and said, "Oh, go and play with your robot droid friend," and they came running over, and I was like, "Oh, so excited!" And it was those 2 seconds that ended up in the movie, and I was like,
that's so cool.
Because the kids are going to go up and say, I was in a Star Wars movie. Yeah, what scene were you in? I was playing with a droid. It's just like, oh, dude. That's what being in these films mean to me. It's what those movies gave to me. If I can be that tiny little cog that either pause it off the screen or gives it to the people that are on set, then that's what I aim to do.
That's so cool because of that that droid, as you said, was the original like K2SO, and then it turned into KOHN, and what was the biggest difference between playing an alien and a droid? Like, how different is that? How different is that performance?
I get the luxury of incorporating everything that I know about what Anthony Daniels has contributed to C-3PO. Okay. It's like some advice I gave an actor on the set of Solo when we were in the Quaitol Site's control room. Mm-hmm. And it was like the pinnacle of what a droid does in movement for a protocol droid, shaped droid, is Anthony Daniels C-3PO. But you don't do that. You do something different that's within the same ballpark as that. Okay. Yeah, his movements are so distinctive. If you are in a protocol droid suit, then by all means you move somewhat similarly, and you have this thing, and you have all of that, which Chris Bartlett has down to a T. Right?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
If you're playing someone like Zero that he played, it's got a different movement. He's got bug eyes. There's something what he's looking for. When I'm watching that, I get goosebumps for Chris, right?
Yeah.
So you take all of those things into account for L1 because of his eye line. This visor he has here.
Yeah.
He used to be a tactical manumitted droid or something like that. So you would look at you would be a tactical droid looking at the terrain. So I was going to bring more. I was going to bring more of just more of a steady look across whenever he had to do that. But then there's this flap that you'll see in that image, and this flap would always come down. So whenever he was doing something, I worked it so that I could just about reach it in the costume, just to flick it up a little bit and to continue. See right between the eyes, where the nose would be, you've got this little bar that would drop. I would just for character, right? So even now, he still has more to give. That's that design droid that they use occasionally still has more to give. But playing that to them playing, let's go Quaitolsite before I go to biological. All right. So Quaitolsite is somewhat biological, but he's somewhat got this rig attached to him, which helps him breathe. All right. And so with the shape of that costume, which also helped in terms of the movement of my shoulders and how flexible he would move his head around, which he didn't, would be to do with the contraption that he has, and why everything would be a little bit more stiff. But I still was able to give him the biological shape and positioning of the pike hands by holding the keys the way that I did. So pikes have this kind of like, they normally kind of have this shape in their arms. Yeah. Right. Especially when they're shooting and things like that. So I wanted that to be a distinctive part of that species, having found out that he was a pike, and I knew what a pike was. But then when you get to playing people like Slow and Low or Kratinus, there are character traits that you can just indulge in. Okay. Just by, let's say for Slow and Low, there was something about like with his head and his neck, it was so wide, I could do the subtlest of movements just to agree to something or to nod or make that kind of gesture. When he's delivering his lines of yep, those are the shuttle parkers. I've got two puppeteers in front of me holding a controller. One of them is Ollie Taylor and one of them is Steve Kinman. And when they're operating it and saying the dialogue, I say the dialogue at the same time because I need to say that to emote it. So I want to get into a rhythm with them. And so when I'm saying it, they're saying it. But the only difference is because they're puppeteers and I love them to bits, when they're operating, they're going, yeah, and they're doing all the facing. So I'm like, oh, so that's the face that needs to fit. I need to move my face. So everything's got to sync, and it happened. Yeah, and like magic, that only took one or two takes. That was one take. We did one rehearsal in one take.
Wow.
For that synchronicity, and I'd seen it before on Solo when I think it was Phil and Chris were directing Alden and directing Six Eyes at the table.
Yeah.
And they're walking through it and they say, right, Alden, you're going to sneak a peek at Six Eyes' cards. Six Eyes, you're going to clock him and then look away. And in that, it was I saw it. I was upset and I was like, that's the most magical thing that's Jim Henson to me that I've ever seen in my life. And there were two guys. There was Richard under the table and there was Matt under the table operating Six Eyes and Derek in the costume and Alden. It was that kind of synchronicity you only get if you understand Star Wars, I guess. You know, I want to think it's like that, but it just, things like that just hit you straight in the heart, because it just takes you back beyond Star Wars to everything that made Star Wars great.
Yeah. Yeah, the all of I mean again, now me talking to you, I go and watch those movies again. My experience like watching them is going to be very different just because of just knowing all of this stuff. But the other thing as well is your performance in The Last Jedi, which which was fantastic, because I thought that character was hilarious, because like he's just there and then he's just, you know, I think it was quite interesting, because when people found out that Joseph Gordon-Levitt did the voice, some people thought it was him in the costume, and I was like, no, because I could tell it was like his figure was like quite different, and the way that you brought, you know, the character to life, you had these distinctive movements where you could just tell it was not him. So I guess I'm kind of setting the record straight in a way, because of people were like, hey, it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the movie. It's like, no, he voiced him. That was someone completely different else in the costume. But yeah.
It's an honor, like I said, to be a tiny cog in this immense world of Star Wars. You know, and when things happen the way that you know they're to happen, and you've seen it happen in Star Wars movies, when the guys will come in and then they'll get an actor to do the voice, and you're just thinking, I'm a part of that. You know, and then Joseph Gordon-Levitt, oh my God, Joe. You're just like, what? And then you're naming them after a Beastie Boys song too. It's just like, oh, I can't move the part out. You know, it's you know, you appreciate those things, you know. But also, I would say that I did stand up for myself. I did let Lucasfilm know they made a mistake in the credits. I told them, you know, it's always you always put the guy who's in the suit, and then you put the guy who did the voice, or you do it vice versa. But they stuck me right down in the middle of Creatures and Puppeteers. But as far as I was concerned, it was still blue ink.
Yeah, right.
But I did tell them, and then they've never made that mistake since for anybody else. So I'm fighting. Yeah. I'm a rebellion, man.
So the and then, you know, you jump from the Last Jedi to Solo, and you are playing this Pike here. He has a lot of screen time, which was super cool. And the other cool thing for me, just kind of lore wise and everything, this was the first Pike that we actually got to see in live action on screen, and that was a big deal, specifically to a lot of Clone Wars fans, because the Pikes were pretty much introduced in the Clone Wars TV show. So actually seeing a Pike on screen, you know, was just the icing on the cake for everything that we got to see in that film, because we are seeing the Millennium Falcon fly for the first time. We are going to the spice mines of Kessel, and then, you know, you have this character, which is a Pike, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. What was it like to have that experience? Because you also had a stunt scene in a way, right? Because Kira ends up like fighting you.
Yeah, let's get to that beautiful moment in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, they told me that I was going to be in this computer room scene, so I'm thinking, oh, probably a droid or something in the background. And then they said, no, you're running it. I'm like, oh, okay. And these are on different days. I don't think any of this information all came on the same day. And then on another day, it'd be like, oh yeah, and you're gonna come in for your fitting for this character. I'm like, okay. And I try not to ask too many questions, because people tend to talk a lot when you're not asking questions, right? Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's what's happening. All right. So later on, it got to this point where I was like, he doesn't have a name or something like that. And I said, well, what is he? Who is he? Or whatever. I said, oh, go and speak to Jake Blunt Davies. I think they said Justin Pithlecki first, and then he said Jake Blunt Davies, and he said, oh, he's a Pike. And they cut off the back of his head because it's a punishment. And he's got these apparatus that help him breathe on this planet because we've been banished there and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I know the Pikes.
Yeah.
What are the odds? Because I'm telling you, I don't think anybody else that would have put in that suit would have known what a Pike was. I knew what a Pike was.
Yes.
Right. So from the very first time I understood that, I watched some Clone Wars. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I think it was just to get into that vibe, because he didn't speak. And then I had elocution lessons from Andrew Jack, the late Andrew Jack, bless him. And did this guttural kind of language for him that I was going to be doing on set. And everything else came from both sets of directors, from Chris and Phil, and then ultimately Ron Howard, who off the cuff said, lean into Kira and put your key under her chin as you're speaking and just whisk it away. And I was like, in my helmet by that time, and I'm stood there facing him. I got John Kasdan on my right, Ron on my left, Amelia right in front of me. Behind her is the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
Yeah. In front of the Millennium Falcon, I got Chewie and I got Han. Right. Then I got Woody Harrelson in Lando's outfit.
Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to hold it together. Right. And so I said, the first thing I said to Ron was, it's not a stunt thing. This is absolute metal. And then Amelia said, no, it's all right. And I'm like, that doesn't make it any easier. Right. But did that scene, and everything from his arrogance, I understood. Yeah. As a Pike, he had no intention. You don't like. I know what a Pike is. So I know how he's thinking in this head that he's screwed into, that I'm screwed into. But I know he's not going to negotiate with them. I know he's going to pull them inside and he's going to imprison all of them. Right? Yeah. That's how I played that. And the moment I got to walk into the office and freak out a little bit when I saw a gonk droid walk out of the wall, which was Jimmy V. I was just like, oh my God, I'm Star Wars. Right? And then that moment where I go into my office and they say, okay, you're going to put the key in the door and the door's going to slide. And so I put the key in and I looked, because that's just Star Wars as the door closed, man. And I was just like, yeah, that's just cool. And then two guys, Darren Knopp and David Knopp, yeah, but it was Darren who's Moon Knight. Okay, he's Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Right? I got on with the stunties so well. I loved them so much, and they were choreographing this scene, and I knew from the pace of how they were shooting it, it was just it's a heist. Yes, but it's a quick bam, 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 bam.
Right.
And in this room, that simple little thing that they did was so effective. Yeah. Especially when I come and slam my head you know, it was beautiful. It wasn't wasn't too much. It wasn't. It was absolutely brilliant, and it was slick for Kira. But then I got the pleasure of her kneeling on my chest, pulling the dagger out, you know, and I'm thinking, I just got taken out by the mother of dragons.
Yes. Add that to the resume. Yeah.
These moments, and there was this moment when we were waiting in the rehearsals just before we started, and it was Phoebe, Amelia, and they were singing an E17 song, which UK band at the time for the 90s. Baby, if you wanna go away, pray, and something like that, right? And I started joining in, and then I said, "Oh yeah, I toured with them," and they stopped, and their jaws opened, and they looked at me. It was like it was a moment in a movie, but I had my head on, right? And they said, "What do you mean?" They started grilling me. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? I said, "Well, I was in a band called Emanate." And then they started singing the song, "I got a little something for you," and I'm like,
"Oh, that's so cool."
How do you know my? I just barely know you guys from TV and these movies. How do you know my? These moments. I get little gems like that.
Yeah,
you know, and I know they're just for me, and I know it's just for that moment. But it's almost like I get just as much back as I give when I'm in Star Wars. But it's those little things. It's the little moments.
It's those types of things that make those core memories, and then when you look back at certain aspects of your life, and in this case, you've got most of it that was on the big screen, like for like of your different roles. Do you look back at the roles that you did and like just a certain memory on set just kind of pops into your head of when you're watching these movies now?
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing with my music. I can't listen to. We did 2 albums. I can't listen to them because as soon as it starts, I remember being in the studio. I remember blah blah blah, blah. And by the time I've remembered everything, the album's finished, and I didn't listen to one track. Yeah, it's the same with these movies, but I get this one single luxury that I don't get with the music is the fact that I don't see my face on the screen. So I'm telling my brain, that's me. My brain's saying, that don't look like you. I move on. Yeah. Things like that, and then it'd be leading up to the scene or something like that. And luckily I'll pause it. I'd have to pause it, but like in Fortaventura, where we filmed Savarine for Solo, remember just sitting on the little sandy banks there, looking at the sun going down, and looking at the set that was built that goes on for a good mile or two, with these water vaporizers or something like that, but yeah, when you're on a set of Star Wars, it is Star Wars, and there are people that don't get it like that, but then it doesn't matter because you get to appreciate that because it's your roots.
Yeah,
they're touching with these moments. But like I said before we started filming, when I jump on set, I'm the fan and the audience. The acting is I'm not even thinking about the acting. The acting is probably the easiest thing in the world doing those things in Star Wars, because I know Star Wars. So it's not even hard work. I'm not even going to brag that it's hard work. It's absolutely easy because I love it. Yeah. Everything else means that I've got all this energy to give to my co-actors on set, give to the extras, and also kind of just press record on this little side button of my head here, of all these things. But yeah, a lot of memories, but mostly good memories, and that's all that matters,
right? Yeah. I mean, like, just being on set, I couldn't even imagine of just walking in, sitting down, getting ready for the role, and then like you're like, after you've kind of processed life for a second, you like kind of look around, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm in Star Wars, and then you have to get back into character. I can't even imagine of what that process was like.
I did. There have been a couple of people that help with that process. Like, I'll sit with hours, in between takes with Kieran Shah.
Okay.
It's like he's my Yoda. it's words of wisdom from Kieran 24/7. You know, and then there was another friend of mine who passed away a while back. I think it was just before COVID. He was paraplegic, so he had prosthetic legs. His name was Derek Campbell. His passing was really tough for me to get over. But we would always run into each other on set, and then just sit there and just look around and just, can you believe who we are? And then we talk about everything. And then, you know, they'd get him back up into his leg suit and go off, and then I'd go off my way. But every single time. But it's impossible not to appreciate where you are.
Right.
You know, what the history, what the legacy is of what you are contributing to. You know, especially as a fan.
Yeah. So as a fan, and then being, you know, part of the Star Wars universe now as a couple of characters, how has that affected your fandom as a Star Wars fan going forward?
Like, I don't expect to be in any more Star Wars movies, and I would say that after every single one, because the experience, I don't know how this experience that I've had for the past 10 years, I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't know how it can be topped anymore. But it's every time I watch Star Wars, and it might have nothing to do with anything that I was in, but I know that I'm related to Star Wars.
Yeah.
I know every time they mention the Spice Mines of Kessel, you know, if there's a King's List, you know, of who runs that place, Quay Tolsite's name will be on there.
Yeah.
You know, it's Quay Tolsite who dealt with Han after after 12 parsecs, or was it before? It was after the 12 parsecs. Or was it before?
It was right before.
Right. So yeah. I met Han just after he did the Kessel Run. Right?
Yeah.
You know, it's, you can't, you know.
Yeah.
I can try and find a moment where, if I have a toy, if I have the Millennium Falcon, it's in this box right there. But if I can look at these things, but there is an association there now, and there is more love. I'd say I have more love for Star Wars now than I did before, which is a strange thing to say, because I'm watching the Clone Wars. I'm watching the prequels. I love the prequels. I watched the original movies, and I love the Mandalorian. You know, when the Ahsoka dropped by, you know, I had tears in my eyes when, you know, Grogu and Dad, unashamedly. But it's Star Wars, you know, and it had nothing to do with anything that was out there. It just came left field and hit everybody for six, you know, and that's Star Wars for me.
That's such a good answer, man. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, like, it's I just love those moments where you are where like you are able to look back at something. For example, Star Wars, you like watch it as a kid, experience it, and then you're part of it, and you go back, and now it's like, you know, you are part of that. And there are projects that you may not be in, but the fact that you're associated with it is just it's so cool. So I'm so happy for you, man.
And I got to meet the most beautiful people. I got to meet the most beautiful people in the world, you know, from puppeteers to makeup artists to wardrobe people, you know, to the people that make the maquettes, that carve them and shape them, and just the artistry, the droid builders. You know, you get to meet all of that. You run into people that are building the sets, and there's a level of appreciation because there's a skill set they possess that I don't, that brings everything together, and it just comes to life. And the contribution I get is to validate that.
Yeah.
You know, as whether it's just walking by, right? Or something like that. But it's just when I remember watching the prequels, and this was before I had any idea of CFX, and I was watching the behind the scenes footage, which no other company, no other DVD franchise, nobody has ever equaled, let alone topped in terms of content. And I watched Ahmed Best strutting and getting into character and all this thing, and I'm thinking, you're an actor, right? I'm like, okay, yeah. If someone said, would you be a character like that, would you do it? I was like, Star Wars, yeah. And it's that for Star Wars, yeah. That I didn't know I was actually signing an agreement back then, to take part in future,
right.
future echelons of it. But as a creature performer, there are those that came before.
Right.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah.
The creature performers that came before all of the creature performers that are doing what we do today. They paved that way along with Jim Henson. Those people paved that way and created those characters and those striking physiological performances that we can step into and embody and understand and get it. There's an organism here, that's bringing this story to life, and like any story, those people that are in the middle of the story might not be at the end of the story, but they're a part of the story.
Yeah. You are, I was gonna say, you are giving me goosebumps for just talking about this stuff. It's and you can see that the passion is there and everything. And I think my last question is gonna be, from being a fan, jumping into this world of puppeteers, being a fan of Jim Henson and just everything. Do you have any advice for people that are trying to achieve their dreams? Because essentially that's what it sounds like you did. You were able to turn a passion into a career, and you are so well accomplished. What advice would you give to someone that is trying to get into this field, or what advice do you have to someone that is trying to accomplish their goals and their dreams?
If it's a passion, you'll know it's a passion because there are things that you will do instinctively. I had posters on my wall. I had posters of Janet Jackson on my wall. And then years later, my band toured with Janet Jackson. I had posters of MC Hammer on my wall. And before my band, I got to audition for MC Hammer. I had posters of Prince. I got to meet the new Power Generation. I was hoping to hook up with them the next time they came around, but Prince changed the lineup. But I got close. That was as close as I got to the MPG. Right. I had posters of Jodeci on my wall. Jodeci remixed one of our singles, Happy. One or two of those things would be a coincidence, right? Right. And so it's surrounding yourself with those kinds of things that would just subtly inspire you. You say you cosplay. Chris and I and a few others did a talk, and hopefully I want to do some more of those talks in the States called From Hollywood to Cosplay. From Hollywood to Cosplay. And then we're talking about the similarities between those people who do the cosplay, who dress up. You dress up for exactly the same reasons we dress up.
Yeah.
You love it, you have a passion for it. But then once you're in that suit, once you're in that outfit, you are sincere to that character and you're sincere to that moment so that you can pose for a picture with somebody as that character. Mm-hmm. You'll do memes, you do little things running around, just little snapshots, boom, boom, boom. This is no different to what we're doing on set. Yeah, you have to watch how long you're in your suit for before you pass out. So do we. We have to take on lots of water. We have to know exactly how long it takes to get in the suit and out of the suit for a toilet break. You know, it's all of those things, but it's that passion. Yeah. You get to meticulously embody what you're creating with all of your passionate energy when you're making it. So that when you put it on, yeah, it's everything you wanted it to be. Yeah. So that you can be that person, right? You have a passion for anything. It's the same thing with a suit. It's the same thing with a smile on your face. Walking out with that intent because you have a passion for something. Yeah. Sometimes you might not even know how it's going to happen, how it's going to manifest, how it's going to appear to you or whatever. But all you got to know is that it will, because you want it to. And if it gets boring and you've got nothing to do, it's like, well, what can I do which is in line with that? Let me draw something. Let me write about it. Let me sketch about it. Let me go and talk to my friends about it. It's all of those things. Yeah, because to have the career, you want to embody the career. So if you want to embody the career, your body has to take part in that. The physical action has to take part in that. Every time you put your cosplay costume on, or every time you go to work, every time you greet somebody in that costume, or every time you greet somebody at work, on your way to work, at home, it's kind of, if I'm chilling and, if there's loads of rubbish to watch on TV, it's just like, oh, yeah, I watch this every single day. It's on Psycho, it's on Psycho. Hang on. Why don't I watch something that actually moves me? Boom.
Yep.
Yeah. And whatever it is that moves you, that energy, that emotion that you're carrying, you can attach to the aspiration that you want, because that's how it will move you when you will have it. But it's kind of, don't give up, man. It's just like when people say, what's the secret of life? Well, the secret of life is you've got to fight for survival every single day of your life. So if you've got to do that, fight for something that you're going to enjoy while you're doing that. It's just, just fight, just keep going. And it's that keep going. People are like, well, I don't know. You're doing it. If you want to get into this industry, you're doing it when you dress up and do cosplay. Chris Bartlett is the absolute personification and absolute bullet point on this point.
Yeah.
He designed these costumes just to give to these fans. Yeah. That turned their heads. He didn't do it to turn their heads. He did it for the love first, and then it came. Yeah, it's almost like you've got to prove how passionate you are about what it is you do by just getting on and doing it.
Yeah.
The best way you can.
Yeah, because I always say, if you care about something, you make time for it. If it's really, really important to you. At the end of the day, your passion drives you. That is what keeps you going. If it's something that you really, really want to do, like you'll make it happen. There will be different rocks in the road, but you've just got to hurdle over them and keep going.
It's like knowing you've got a left foot. You just got to keep going. You got to keep taking each step as it comes, man. But you know that you're walking towards it. Every time you get out of bed and you step outside that door, you're walking towards it. You're imagining it. If you can't find a poster for it, draw it. I don't know. But the posters was something that just happened over time that I look back on and thought, hang on a second. It was there all the time, helping me stay in that vibe and not get down about it. Because you can't get down about something you love.
Yeah.
If you don't have it the way that you want it, imagine it, because you can do it. It's just like, it'll feel like this. It'll be amazing.
Yeah. Dude, you are an absolute inspiration. Thank you for taking the time and talking to me about all of your adventures that you had on set. And thank you so much for everything that you do for the Star Wars community. Yeah, man, you're fantastic. Is there any future projects or anything that you wanted to talk about before we headed out? Is there anything you wanted to promote?
No, I've got nothing coming up, and I mean that sincerely. I know people say, "Oh, yeah, you're probably under contract," right? But no, I mean that sincerely. Got nothing else coming up at the moment. Hopefully, I've got a May the 4th convention to go to in Ireland
Okay.
this year, and then hopefully I should be in. I might be in Michigan. I might be in Michigan or somewhere near Chicago or something. Maybe August time. I don't know.
I'm from Michigan, so that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it might be something of interest I'm involved in down there.
Okay.
And I know I'm penciled in for a signing in Holland in September. So I'm hoping to do a lot more signings, especially at smaller conventions where people can't afford to come to the big conventions.
Yeah.
And the big conventions I only go to if I'm visiting my friends that are already doing it. Yeah?
Right.
Because I want to shop. I want to buy stuff. If someone recognizes me, I'll sign something. Yeah, there you go. Right? But then I'm just going to buy as much Star Wars stuff as I can get my hands on. If I'm signing, I can't buy Poodoo. I can't buy that. But one thing I want to say to you, I saw one of your posts, and it was to do with the Millennium Falcon appearing in was it Phantom Menace?
It was Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. Of the fun fact, yeah.
Story I have. I used to babysit my neighbor's kids, and their youngest kid, Connor, used to come walking through my front door, sit on the sofa. Right, my mum would have his plates of grapes and whatever snacks he wanted to eat, and he'd pick out what movie he wanted to watch. So we put on the DVD and we watch it, and we were watching Revenge of the Sith. And that moment happened, and he goes, the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, no, it's not in the movie. He's about 4 years old, right? You go, no, yeah. I'm saying it's in this movie. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, no, it's not. He goes, I said, where? He says, go back. So I'm going back, and he goes, there. And I'm like, yeah, that's the yeah.
Yeah, no, I love those like kind of small. I just love those small facts because they just build up more and more. And I think the beauty about Star Wars and is that all of the small things that you see in the background, or of just people and Maz's castle in Force Awakens or the cantina, all those characters have backgrounds. Like they all have stories, and it's so fascinating to me that the people on the Lucasfilm team just sat down and was like, okay, so it's this person, he went here, he did this, he knows this guy, and it's just like, that's crazy to me. So it's so cool that they carried that tradition on.
A lot of that was Pablo Hidalgo. You know? I just love him. And it's just the characters that he created just from those things, like what he said about L1 was the most beautiful passage that fit.
Yeah.
Those couple of seconds that greeting those kids, saying that the droid looked after the street urchins and would try and find food or make money for them or something like that. But there was this kind of thing where he was their droid. That's the movie I would pay to see. Yeah. But the story was so touching for me because, and I told him when I met him, I had to tell him what he wrote about that droid was beautiful because of that moment. But these things, these stories, these backgrounds that they have, it gives us everything to work with. Like when we were in Maz's castle, imagine there's only maybe a handful of people that are actually Star Wars fans, like Star Wars fans, right? That are sitting there thinking, can you imagine if they had this as a toy set? And all these characters you had to collect. Yeah. You say it, but and there's no guarantee. Kratos doesn't even have a figure, but it doesn't matter because I was there.
Right. Oh man. Yeah. And just to be part of a legacy as huge as Star Wars has just got to be the gift that keeps on giving, like just making, friends like Chris Barlett and just meeting the fans and stuff like that. That is
people like yourself. I
appreciate that.
There's a warm sense of of love and appreciation all around, especially when I come over to America. And I don't mean this for me when I come over to America. I mean, when I come over, it's there for Star Wars. Yeah. And we talk about Star Wars, and if they want to know what happened when I was filming, great. If not, let's talk about something that I want to figure out in Star Wars. You know, but it's just a beautiful atmosphere. Like I do Bunta Eve with Spencer Yowitz whenever I can. I'm in the States over there, because the family of friends that I have there, just love them, and it's Star Wars, and it's all through Star Wars. So that's what keeps giving.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming on. I love your passion. If you come to Michigan, I would love to see you. That would be super cool. Yeah.
I'll keep you posted. I'll throw my out, because that's a way off. So there's some talking that needs to happen. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, from myself and Dee Tails, thank you all for listening and watching. May the Force be with you always.
Always.